everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Triple Threats Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Garcia, and today we have a very, very special guest. We have Brittany Conigatti on our show today. Hello, Brittany. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How have you been keeping busy and everything?
Trying to keep busy. Doing like the odd jobs now that theater has been shut down. So I am pretty much nannying full time and doing a lot of dance privates and acting coaching privates and things like that just to keep kids and everyone on their toes for when things reopen.
You said nanny, like babysitter?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I nanny a 3-year-old in Manhattan. So he's adorable.
Aw.
He turned 3 on Friday. And I've been hanging with him for the last few months. I was supposed to only be with him for about 2 weeks, and it's been about 5 months.
There you go. Went full time. So let's talk a little bit about where you grew up. Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
So I was born and raised in Staten Island, New York. So I have been a city girl majority of my life. I went to grammar school on Staten Island, and then for high school, I ended up going to LaGuardia High School for the Performing Arts, which is in Manhattan, and I was a dance major. Some know it as the Fame School. There's a few movies on it. I then went to AMDA, which is the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and I earned my associate's degree there, and then I finished my BFA in musical theater at the New School.
There you go. And so let's talk about audition process. You had to go and audition for AMDA, correct?
Yes. For AMDA specifically, I did their integrated program, which is their musical theater program. They have strict dance, strict acting, and then the integrated, which is musical theater. So I had to prepare 2 contrasting songs, so an up-tempo and a ballad, and then I had to perform 1 monologue.
Right. So you've been performing.
They ask you all different questions in the room and sort of what your background is in performing and what are your strong suits, what do you think your weaknesses are, and things like that. And then from there, they sort of curate your groupings once you get accepted into the school, and then everyone is divided up into these little groups. So I was a D, which most of the people within my group were dancers first. And so the teachers then have an idea about sort of how to structure the classes and sort of cater it towards the students that are in each particular group.
Right. Now that it sounds fun. I know a lot of kids. I'm a junior in high school, so I know a lot of kids that are towards musical theater. That's like a lot of kids to that school. So it's good to get information on that. So you've been performing your whole life, dancer first, singer first. What was it?
So I would consider myself a dancer first. I didn't actually, I did a lot of my like community theater shows, but I was primarily drawn to theater in my senior year of high school. So I'm one of the later ones to join the musical theater world, I would say, full time.
Gotcha.
So I didn't really take a voice lesson until I was a senior in high school. And then from there, I sort of like crammed all of my training in college and in high school to try and prepare myself for going to college or trying to break into the like audition world and sort of just go right into it. So I would go on a lot of auditions for things that I knew I wasn't able to book, be it my age or I just wasn't right for it, just so that I could start getting a feel for all the different auditions that would be happening. Because I think audition technique is completely different than even the stuff that you end up training in. So that is a skill set in itself, which I have come to learn. So I would say that's hard. So yeah, I started really the first job I got professionally, I was 17 and I was still in high school, and they didn't know I was still in high school, and that's kind of how I got it. I went to an open call for High School Musical at Paper Mill Playhouse. And the breakdown, they asked for hip hop dancers, people who can tumble and do acrobatics and things like that. They sort of wanted a really versatile cast. And so I was like, let me go and give it a shot. So I went and I kept getting callback after callback after callback. And so then they ask if you can sing 16 bars or 32 bars of a song. And I only knew at the time 1 song from my group voice lesson, which was an elective in my high school. Because being a dance major, your junior and senior year, you get to then take electives. So instead of doing ballet, as my like main study and modern, you then got to switch up one day a week. You got to either take jazz or tap, musical theater. You could take a voice lesson.
Oh,
So
that's pretty cool. So
yeah,
you're everywhere.
it sort of exposed you to a lot of things so that you can kind of find which avenue you want to go down. And
Right.
so I ended up singing all that jazz because that was the only song that I knew and had sheet music for this High School Musical audition, which if you're auditioning for High School Musical, that is not the right song, especially at the age of 17 to be singing. But somehow I made it through, and then I ended up getting the phone call while I was in my forensics class in school. And it was sort of really exciting. And because I went to performing arts school, it was a little bit easier to sort of work my schedule out, where our academics ended up being in the morning. So I could still go to the academic classes that I needed to. But my afternoon, where my dance classes would be, they were just counting all of my rehearsals for High School Musical as those dance classes. So it's rare that you're
Oh,
allowed to work while you're at LaGuardia. However, because I was ahead academically and that my arts ended up falling in the second half of the day, it ended up working out. So I did that
yeah.
for my senior year of high school for some of it. And then I went to AMDA for a little bit. I did another show at Paper Mill. I did Hairspray there where I was their female swing. And then immediately after I graduated AMDA, about a week later, I booked Disney's Beauty and the Beast on tour. So I went on tour very young. I was 20 and sort of just went for it. Went on tour for a little bit, and then I came home. I did another few shows at Paper Mill. Paper Mill is literally my home away from home. I've done 5 shows there. I absolutely love it there.
That's a
And
lot.
it's close to home. So it's in New Jersey. So a lot of my family and friends, it's easy to travel to and go and see the shows. And the shows are just phenomenal. So if you're not working on Broadway, you want to be working at Paper Mill.
Right.
Yeah. And then I went back on tour with Matilda, where, well, at first I did actually Rock of Ages on a cruise ship. So I was a part of the second cast of Rock of Ages on the Norwegian Breakaway, which was sort of a new thing that Norwegian was trying out at the time, was bringing Broadway shows on the ship, which was really
Yeah.
cool. So I did that for a little bit. Then I went on tour with Matilda, which was insane and awesome and fun, and I swung that as well. So look at me. Yeah. So I swung all the kids and the adults in that show. So I had to know 22 different tracks to go on at the drop of a hat, which was
Right.
insane. Especially with kids, it also depended on each state has different laws for school. So some kids you have to have a certain amount of hours in person, a certain amount of hours out of school. So there's a lot of stipulations, especially on tour. So city to city, it always varied on what hours kids had logged, or if you got extra hours in another city, if they can work in this city. So I was on probably like a good amount of the shows each week. I would say anywhere from like 4 to 5 shows a week I was doing as a swing, which normally I feel sometimes swings don't get on for a really long time. But in shows like Matilda, you're on all the time. A kid could even stub their toe during safety call, and then you got called to be in. So
There you go.
that was
And you
a
have to
really,
know it.
really, exactly, fun experience to
So,
do. Yeah, then I
and
came back and I did a Bronx Tale.
not many people know how tough the job is as a swing because you have to know
So difficult.
everything.
Everything. You need to know not even the stuff on stage. You need to know all the stuff that happens off stage as well. Because if you get in someone else's way, no bueno. So it's
And
hard. So I sort of
sure.
have to know things from their top of, like, when they walk in the door for the show. So from how they prep, their wig prep, their makeup, what time they go to their wig call, what time they get dressed for their costumes, where their quick changes are, where all of their props are, because everyone has things in all different places. Who has a secret hiding spot over here because they like this lighter better than somewhere else. So it's a big puzzle and a big game, but that's sort of what makes it fun because you're always on your toes. So you never get bored as a swing. At least I never got bored as a swing.
And I can't imagine being on tour as a tour because it's not like you're in one place. So
Right.
you're moving to all these different
And
places,
every
different
theater is
stages.
different. Exactly. So
Yes.
sometimes you'd have your orchestra pit under the stage. Sometimes they would be in front of you. Sometimes they would be in a completely different room, which
Right.
was also crazy because you're looking for a conductor, but then you have to realize, oh, wait, they're actually in a room like 2 doors down underneath the stage, and we don't, like, you can't even see them. So everything, they always make sure to have monitors. Like in every theater, they try and make sure that at least there's one monitor on what would be like the light rail, so that God forbid anything happens, you could still see the conductor cam there. And then in the wings, at least on Matilda, we traveled with 2 different monitors as well for stage right and stage left, which allowed you to sort of be able to follow along when you had to sing backstage there.
Not to mention you're working with little kids.
Right.
So
They become your little brothers and sisters.
I can imagine that was probably
And
even
you're
harder.
traveling
So
also with their families. So
right.
a lot of the kids, like their siblings would come and visit, or some were so young that they ended up traveling with us. So Matilda was a huge family because it was a cast of 30, and then you had all the kids and their parents, and then sometimes their siblings or grandma or aunt or cousin or whoever was on the road at the time. People would switch in and out all the time, which made it kind of fun.
Right. So let's talk about your Broadway debut. It's the Bronx Tale. If anybody doesn't know, there's Brittany right there in the blue pants, her famous blue pants.
Hashtag blue capris. That was what was coined early on when those came out. Because originally, when I did the out of town try it at Paper Mill, they were gray, and then all of a sudden, when we got to Broadway, I saw my new like costume plot, and they were these like light baby blue capris, and I was in love with them. So everyone knew the girl in the blue capris.
Yeah. How did you audition for, like, did you go to like an open call? What was it? Did you have an agent?
So I have an agent. I've had an agent actually since my senior year of high school. The second half of my senior year, I ended up getting the agency that I've still been with this whole time. I'm with Block Talent Agency. So they usually will submit me for a bunch of different projects. You get invited to these auditions, and this particular one was a dance lab that they were having. So a dance lab basically is like preliminary stages to a musical. So they do readings and they do labs. Sometimes they're full labs where you end up doing like good amount of numbers in the show. This particular dance lab, they were doing maybe 5 numbers, I think we ended up doing, trying them out. And out of those 5, I think 3 ended up making it into the show, which is pretty
Oh,
cool because then you see
yeah.
things that didn't really make it and like, why didn't it make it in? So I auditioned for the dance lab. And a lot of times with labs, choreographers and directors try and take people they've worked with already because you only have a select amount of time in order to get all the information that you sort of want to create out to do a showing of it for different producers and the director, and just to sort of figure out the realm of the show that you kind of want it to be in. So I was one of, I think, 3 people who booked the dance lab who had not worked with Sergio Trujillo, who is the choreographer of the show. Everyone else, majority of the group did Jersey Boys, Memphis, one of his past shows that he already had a relationship with them. So he sort of knew their work ethic and what they were capable of, and the world in which the show would revolve around. You sort of needed a lot of guys because the show is based, in the Bronx with
Yep.
a mob, like all the mob and sort of what went down on the streets of the Bronx. So there's only 3 females in the Italian ensemble, and then there's 3 girls in the Webster ensemble. So that distinguishes. So Belmont Avenue was the street that Chaz Palminteri grew up on, and that's where the Italians all sort of lived and had their apartments and houses and all that stuff. And then Webster Avenue was where Jane, the girl that he fell in love with in high school, lived, and that whole crew. So I joined the dance lab, and we were working on I had audition for a dance call. We did sort of like a compilation of things that Sergio wanted to put throughout the show, dance-wise. So it wasn't one particular sequence of dance choreography from one particular number, since it was still being super developed. So it was just sort of getting a feel for the things that he needed to see that he wanted within the show. So I went to that, and then I had to go for a callback, and I did a singer's call where you go in the room, you sing your song, you get directions from the casting director, or the director at the time, Jerry Zaks, was in the room, and he made me sing my song a few times, all different ways, like acting ways, to sort of see how you can, on the spot, deal with, figuring out all the corrections or different things that he'd like you to do, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And from there, I ended up booking the dance lab, and that was about 4 weeks that we got together and we worked on these 5 numbers, showcased it at the end, and then they could sort of see when they went to do right after me, they ended up doing a workshop. I got pulled to go on the Matilda tour, so I didn't do the workshop for a Bronx Tale, but they had me come back and audition to go with the out of town tryout that they were going to be doing at Paper Mill Playhouse. And so I flew home from the Matilda tour in one day, took one day off, did the audition. I only had to sing because at this point he knew my dance ability. So I had to
Okay.
sing. And for these, they were actually really like, it was probably one of the scariest auditions I've ever done, only because they had them in a theater, which is pretty rare. Like usually they're in just like dance studios or rehearsal studios.
Yeah.
And we were literally in like a black box theater where you had Bob De Niro, Chaz Palminteri, like every name you can think of that was involved with the Bronx Tale was in that audience. And so normally when you go into an audition, you audition for the choreographer, the director, casting. Like you're used to seeing maybe like 5 to 6 people. This was
Mhm.
like if like a lot of people were in the
So,
theater.
like, this was it.
Yeah. So this, when I walked in and saw that that's the setting we were in, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is the real deal. Like I need to pull out all the stops and we just got to do this because I at that point after doing the dance lab, I really loved the show and I felt being Italian myself, it was a really great show to make a Broadway debut with. So I flew in from Matilda, did the thing, and then the next morning I flew back to tour and I ended up getting the call that I booked the out of town for a Bronx Tale. And now
Right.
when you book an out of town, that doesn't always guarantee that you move with it to Broadway.
Mhm.
So you had to sort of take the out of town as like another win, but also like you're still kind of auditioning even though you're
The
in the
whole
show.
time.
Yeah. So out of our cast of about 30, only half, if that, moved to Broadway. So that was also really difficult because you start getting really close with people and people put in a lot of work in the show. So it's just the industry you are never safe in. As
That's it.
scary as
Yeah.
it sounds, that's sort of a good way to kind of go into it is that you always have to be on your A game.
There's
And
so
so,
many to go, and you must have really stood out to them because in that transfer from pre-Broadway to Broadway,
mhm.
they chose you as the dance captain.
Yeah, so I ended up getting the dance captain about 2 weeks into our out of town tryout. So that was also really exciting because I never worked for Sergio besides that dance lab before. And normally, dance captains are picked. Number one, you're normally a swing because you're off stage. It's a lot easier to be able to watch the show and give notes because technically you're not on every night. It's pretty rare that you're an on stage dance captain. However, in this situation, the girls within our show were on stage very sporadically. So it gave still me the opportunity to watch from the wings or run out to the back of the house if I had to really see something. So it was really exciting that I ended up getting the dance captain role because I didn't always have a relationship with Sergio. So it was sort of very surprising, but also really exciting. And I was young. I was 24 or 23 when we did the out of town tryout. So now I'm 23 and 24, but I also have to now kind of be the boss to all guys who are
Right.
my dad and grandpa's age, which is crazy because they're thinking of me like, what does this girl know? Like, she's so young, she's new to the industry. But our company was so incredible. And then when we moved from Paper Mill to Broadway, I was nervous that I'd then become the swing since they wanted me to still be the dance captain. But I got to keep my on-stage track, which I was very, very, very happy with.
I
And so,
mean,
yeah, so then I got to dance captain the Broadway show, which was such a huge undertaking because I was running rehearsals, I was running setting up press events. I'd have a side conversation with Sergio on what he'd want on like the Today Show, for example, and then I would sort of start the rehearsal process for it, and then he would come in and sort of fix it and move things around and make it more ideal to how he wanted the camera angles to be. And it was just a really huge learning experience, but it was awesome. It was so much
I
fun, and I think it really set me up to because then I became the associate choreographer for the first national tour and the restager choreographer for the second national tour. So then I basically set more the second tour. I set the second tour kind of all on my own, um, which was great because I was the only one who sort of knew it from the ground up, from the inside out. I knew
Gotcha.
I knew what
You were
everything happened backstage. I knew how every set change happened. I knew like I knew everything about this show. It is ingrained in my body. So
exactly.
um, it was crazy how this whole process started, but then like seeing how I literally started in a dance lab with this show to then being the restager choreographer for the second national tour and like being with all the companies that have since gone through has been like so rewarding and so like incredibly exciting. It's awesome.
And you're obviously you were part of the original Broadway cast. You
Mhm.
you recorded the album.
Oh, which was so cool. I was so nervous.
I mean
Especially being a dancer first. When they put those like it's so legit. Like you get the headset, you get the microphone in front of you. Like it was really, really cool. And like when we weren't recording our own tracks, you got to then go in the sound booth or in the studio where they were mixing it with Alan Menken, Glenn Slater, Ron Melrose. And so you got to watch this entire thing unfold
the
and
process.
see what was happening behind the scenes as you were in the booth recording. So it was really, really cool.
I mean, yeah, and then it must have been pretty cool to see yourself on these like promotional photos.
That was huge because that was a huge billboard in Times Square too. So the first time I was walking through Times Square and like you just happened to look up and I was like, "Oh my god, that's me." I was like literally I was like, "Can you take my picture?" And I was like, "That's me." To like a million strangers.
Did you know that they were gonna put that up there?
So we knew they were going to use it for promotional things. Like we knew it would go outside the theater. I didn't realize the extent of what they were doing. And then they didn't tell us it was going up in Times Square until I had like a few friends be like, "You're on time. You're in Times Square." They would show our B-roll a lot, which is sort of like our commercial of the show
Yep.
on a lot of the jumbotrons out there, which was also a really cool experience. But seeing you like life size in the middle of Times Square was unreal.
Now, there's a lot of pictures of you in
Hmm.
your character. You
Yeah,
can see this one here, you backstage.
yeah.
So yeah, that must have been a really cool first Broadway experience.
I got to do the only thing I didn't get to do that I'm like really, really hoping I get to do are the Tony Awards and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Growing up in the
Yeah.
city, I mean, growing up in Staten Island, I every year went to the Thanksgiving Day Parade with my dad and uncle, my cousins, my brother and sister. Like we've done it since we were young, like tradition. So I always got so excited when the musical numbers would happen because to me that was like the best part of the parade. So I'm
Mhm.
dying to be in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And each show I've done, I've come in after it. Or like a Bronx Tale, we didn't do the parade. Prom, they already did the parade, and then I came um,
Right.
in July. They did it in November, so I keep missing it, but hopefully
You'll
I'll get
get there.
it. Same
You'll
with
get there.
I'm dying to do the Tony Awards. They look so exciting. I've never been. I haven't even been an audience member at them. So that's like so I still have two bucket lists left. I've done the OBC, I've done the cast recording, I've done the opening night, I've done closing nights, which to be honest end up being so fun even though they're so sad at the same time. But I really want to do Tony Awards and I really want to do the Macy's parade.
And you already another check that you can check off.
Oh, sorry, you broke up. Can you say that one more time?
You were to roll on already. You can check off your box.
Yes, exactly.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So then did you get a call that they wanted you to be in the prom or did you go for a series of auditions?
So the prom I originally auditioned for when they did their out of tryout in Atlanta.
Oh,
I was
so
still
that
doing a Bronx Tale at the time. And I was at a point with the show that I didn't want to leave yet to do an out of town of another show, which is also a really difficult thing is like when to know when to leave a show and when not to leave a show because you don't know when the show would close to begin with. And a Bronx Tale sort of felt like my baby that I just like couldn't give it up.
right.
So Prom did the out of town tryout and then I finished doing a Bronx Tale. I had a little bit of downtime where we set the first national. I ended up doing a show in Florida at the Maltz Jupiter Theater. And then I did Mamma Mia down there. And then when I came back, I knew one girl was getting married, so they probably were going to be looking for a vacation swing, which is what I thought I'd be going in for. And then a few weeks after that, one girl ended up having to put her notice in because she booked the San Francisco company of Harry Potter.
Oh,
She
uh,
was
uh,
Brittany, ironically.
yeah.
Brittany replaced Brittany. So I ended up going into audition. I did a singer's call. So they knew me dance wise because I've gone in for them before. And a lot of the team had seen me do other shows. And the casting director knew me well from all the different auditions I've been in for them. So it's sort of like once you kind of get in this pool of audition world, you start to know casting directors, you start to know different directors and choreographers, and you start to create a little bit of a name for yourself where people sort of know your strengths, your weaknesses, what shows you've done, they've seen them themselves, that sort of thing. So I didn't have to dance anymore for prom. I went in and did a singer's call. Actually, my singer's call was the day after the Tonys, ironically.
Oh,
So
really?
whoever, like the music director, Meg, had to come in to play for my audition. And I have worked with her at Paper Mill Playhouse before, so I know her pretty well. And it was so interesting when she came in. And there was only two of us auditioning, which also was
Oh,
crazy.
really?
Normally, that's rare. You always have a large
Long
group,
line.
especially girls, you always have a large group of girls auditioning for one track. And there was me and another girl there. And I just like in my gut, I was like, you got this. Like, just go in. I was the first one. She sang after me. I was like, just go in, do your thing. Don't have any expectations because you don't want to be disappointed, but just go in, do your thing, and then leave. And that's it. And that's all you got to think about. So I went in and sang my song, which no one sings my song. It's a song I got in high school. I truly sing it probably for every audition, no matter what they ask for. I always will sing this song first and then be like, well, I do have other options, but like, this is my strong song. And ironically, the girl sang my song after me.
What's the
And
song?
no one has ever sung it. I'm not even joking. I've never heard it sung before. I don't know who even wrote my song. I don't know what show it's from. Like, it's that much of a song that's like not really known that I was like, she had to have gone to the same voice teacher as me. However, he's passed away. So it was just so bizarre. And she sang it a little different than I do, which I was like, oh, that's also interesting. Um,
What is it?
and then we sang, we left, didn't hear for like 2 days. And then I was at Paper Mill again doing Beauty and the Beast there. And we were in understudy rehearsal. Yes, Purple Silly. We were in understudy rehearsal. And that picture actually was me from the tour. So I was baby.
Oh.
That was me as a baby girl. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was me. I was 20 there. I look the
Wow.
same. Thank you. Well,
Yeah,
I
you
hope I look
do.
the same.
What
Um,
song what song was the audition song that she sung as well?
so it's called Until Now.
Until now.
Yep. Don't know where
I'll
it's
have to
from.
look it up later.
I
Now,
trust me,
did
because
you
I tried to look up lyrics. I can't even find like another verse of it. I
did
only have
you
my sheet
audition
music.
first? Did you audition first? She.
I did.
Oh, so
I
she was
will
probably like,
always try to go first. That's just like my thing. I get too nervous if I have to sit around for a while.
hmm,
I'd rather just go and get it over with. And then I sort of feel that then they have no one to kind of compare me to.
right.
So like, even if I didn't do like my greatest, it's like, okay, like she went, it's done. Once someone else starts singing, like now I'm sort of like back here in their brain. So there's not much of a comparison, at least on like how I feel. So I
Right.
like going first. So I was there first. I always get there early. I sign up right away. Even if my appointment's at 2 o'clock, I'll get there at like 1 o'clock. And so if I can go early, I'd much rather go earlier. So I jumped in, sang my song, left. Well, I stayed around to hear her sing, which I'm not really supposed to do, but I was like, if there's two of us, I got to hear what she sounds like.
Right.
And then I left, and within like 2 days, I heard I was at understudy rehearsal for Beauty and the Beast because I was the dance captain. So I was running the understudy rehearsals there. And I see a number pop up, and my agent will only call me if I have feedback from an audition that I didn't book, feedback from an audition I did book, or if I book something. So I saw the number pop up, and I was like, okay, this is either really bad news where I did not get it, or
Mhm.
that like I just got my second Broadway show. And for some reason, what's so interesting is Prom is the show that had Bronx Tale close. So I was
Right.
back in the same theater, right. So I sort of had this, like, little, like, prom, like, they let Bronx still close because they bought us out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You start to, like, think that way, and then when I'm like, "Oh, but I can now have another show," so, like, now I like prom again.
In the same theater, so you already knew the theater. So you know
Yeah,
the ins and
I was
outs.
literally going just like I was going back home. All the crew back there is unreal, so great. The front of house, our house manager at the Longacre is hysterical. If you ever have someone for house managing, you have to have Kenny on here. He truly is the absolute he's the best, literally the best. He learns a dance number from every show and does it in the back of the house as it's happening on stage. So, like, not distracting for the audience, but,
Right.
like, he did the opening number for A Bronx Tale and he did the closing number for Prom. So whenever
Closing
you
number
have, like, that little lull in the number, you just look at Kenny in the back and he is going 100% every show.
and closing number for the prom is not easy, in my opinion.
No, and he
You
learns
learn
the whole thing, so he kinda learns it backwards because he learns it mirrored, so he knows the whole opposite side of what we all know.
right.
Um, yeah, so I got the call, yeah, like 2 days later, and then I started rehearsals about 2 weeks after I got the call, I would say. So I got the call or actually maybe a week later. It happened really quick because she already knew she had to go to San Francisco for the Harry Potter company. Um,
Okay.
and a lot of things were happening at prom where they were doing split tracks and people were out and it was just like a really wonky time. After the Tonys, a lot of people have been like revving up, revving up, revving up that then their bodies catch up to them and then people get sick, vacations, whatever. So I went right into rehearsals. I learned the show in about 3 days. And then when I was not with Beauty and the Beast, I was at the theater or in the rehearsal studio learning my track. My first show got bumped up about a week. And I ended up not even doing my full track that I was supposed to know. I did a split track. So I sort of had to like flip my brain back into swing world, even though I wasn't a swing for this show. I was an ensemble member and just like go with the flow. So my first two shows, well, my first show, I did majority of my track, but I had picked up a lot of little things from other girls' tracks within the show or guys' tracks within the show just to sort of like help the team out. And then my second show of that day was the blackout that we had in New York
Oh,
City.
I remember
Where
that day
theater shut down
so
for an
vividly.
entire night. Yep.
And now look down for a year.
Ugh, tell me about it. I know. So that
It's
was
crazy.
prom. Prom was an incredible experience in itself. I knew a good amount of the cast just from like auditions and things. My purple dress, isn't that so pretty? It actually is Susie's dress that then I got. um, yeah, and I was a blonde, which was really fun. So I've actually never been my hair color in a show except for A Bronx Tale.
Yeah.
Every other show I've done, I have been a redhead or I'm blonde. And in Mean Girls, I'm back to being a redhead. Yeah.
You were two blondes in the prom because you also had the
Yeah.
short hair for Love Thy Neighbor.
Yes. And
Yeah.
everyone would always say, like, any family or friends that came to see the show, my mom has blonde hair. And so anytime they would see me in the blonde wig, they were like, wow, you look just like your mom.
Anybody ever like, is that your daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was also in the audience being like, that's mine.
Yeah. That's so funny.
It's
Now,
fun.
how many
And
shows?
especially since we live close, it's easy to come and do like rush tickets. I mean, I hope they still keep that stuff, but
I
so
know.
she'd always like grab a rush seat and come and see the show.
So, had you seen the prom before you went for the audition?
I did, not knowing that I was going to be auditioning. But my really good friend Jack was the dance captain of it, and he happened to be on. And I got like a last minute seat randomly a few weeks prior to it. So I did get to see the show before I auditioned for it, which was super helpful. But of course, I wasn't watching the show thinking I was going to be auditioning for it. So I didn't study it. I watched it like as like a fun audience member, and then had audition. I was like, oh my gosh, now I have to remember what all the stuff was.
Now, did you watch the movie The Prom on Netflix?
I
The
did.
movie version?
Yes. I loved it. I thought they
Yeah.
did a great job. And Ari actually was my original Jane for A Bronx Tale. So it was
Yeah.
really cool to see her get to make her movie debut in that show. She has a big year coming up. She's also Anita in the West Side Story movie. Yeah,
And she did The Hamilton, which came out on Disney Plus. And
exactly.
she,
Yeah. She had an
yeah,
awesome year. Yeah. She's great. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really cool to get to see, and of course, you see all friends you know. I mean,
Mhm.
at least in the prom, none of us from New York got to do it. One girl, Vosti, actually, because she now lives in LA and is based in LA, she got to go out and do some things because she just moved there when they started filming. So she lucked
Yeah.
out. Yeah, but it that whole show is incredible.
Is she the only one?
She was the only one.
She
And
was
then
the only
Jack
one.
and Brendan. So Brendan
Oh,
was dance captain in Atlanta for
uh-huh.
the out of town tryout. Him and Jack were associates on the movie. So they helped set a lot of the dance numbers. So they got to do like cameo appearances in the
Yeah, yeah.
future.
That
Yeah.
that
It's
is
really
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
So, now you closed with the prom.
Hmm.
This was your closing night with the
Yeah.
prom, center stage, and you took your bow right there with
Yeah.
everybody else. And then you guys, after the curtain call, you guys break out into like this crazy
Huge
dance.
dance number. That show is cardio. Anytime I have to teach a class, that's like prom choreography, I just start it with, "You will never do more cardio than in the prom." It is nonstop. If you're off stage, you're changing into your next costume. Like you do not get a break in that show.
Yeah, I
And in
mean,
the Longacre, our dressing rooms are on the fifth floor. So you're climbing stairs, getting changed, stairs back down. The wigs were in the basement. So you had to pass through the basement to get your wig on, back upstairs to the stage level. Yeah, it was nuts, but I was in the best shape I've ever been in.
and you have to do it in time to get right back on stage.
Exactly, exactly.
Whew, did you ever miss a cue or anything?
No, I'm far too nervous to never be like fully there. I mean, I'd be running, but I'd always make it. Like, so if I like had to go to the bathroom or something and I'm like, okay, I know I have like literally 1 minute. Can I just pee really fast and get back to stage? I would chance it sometimes. Bronx till like I could chance it a lot more because I had a lot more breaks. But
Okay.
prom, you like had to calculate every move that wasn't a part of your like backstage choreography. Hmm.
Have you ever had any onstage mishaps with anything at Paper Mill, any Broadway, anything?
So I have. Everyone has. Whoever hasn't, they're lying.
Right.
Um, I actually did a show at the Cape Playhouse. I was just talking about this with my mom. At the Cape Playhouse, I did Sweet Charity there, and there's the number in the middle called the Frug. It's like 8 minutes long, dance number. And we were in these satin black gloves. I had on a very short black dress, fishnet stockings, so it's the stockings with all the holes in them.
Mhm.
And then normally I would have briefs on underneath my dress. And I would always put the briefs on before I put my gloves on because once the gloves are on, you like really can feel if everything's on. And I always do like a check before I go on stage just to make sure. And this day I did not check and I went on stage without my briefs. So I did an entire 8 minute number and the audience got a really nice peep show of my booty. Really nice
Oh.
peep show of my booty. And a lot of the choreography for my side of the stage faced the back. So I truly,
What are the odds?
yeah. And then I had everyone, well, everyone in the front row was like this. And then everyone backstage in the wings was, and so when I came up, I was like, what is everyone staring at? And they're like, Brittany, you have no pants on. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just did that whole number literally in a thong and fishnet stockings. That's like
You'll
it.
never do that again.
No, no. And I never put my gloves on until I got to the stage and put it on right before I went on. And I double checked that I had my briefs on. So that was
So
probably my biggest mishap.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that bad. There could be worse. I mean, it's pretty.
Exactly. And I'm sure a lot of people have had worse, but for me, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
But I'm
So
someone who laughs at all that stuff, so it was cool.
right, it's an experience. So after you finished with the prom,
Mhm.
did you just? Because I know it's the same, creative team,
Mhm.
AC Nicola for Mean Girls.
Yeah.
So did they call you or did you audition for Mean Girls as well?
So, nothing for me within this entire industry has been easy. I have worked literally from the ground up. So when I get something that's big, it is truly a celebratory moment because I probably have gone through the trenches to get that. Um, I'm not lucky enough to just get the phone call and be like, "You want to be in this show?"
Right.
No. Some
One day
people
you
get
will.
that, and some
One day
people
you
get it.
will.
Thank you.
One
Yes,
day
I'm
you
putting in
will.
the universe, I will get that.
Said
But it's like
said
some
here first.
people Right. Leave college and they're in a show right away. So like
Mhm.
it's a whole everyone kind of has their journey. So Mean Girls, no, I had to go through all the auditions. So I originally was in for I went in for the Broadway company a few times. But their tracking for that show is super specific. So almost all of their ensemble cover leads. Because for Broadway, you have to have two covers for every lead. And they have standbys who are offstage swings who cover the leads. So there's a lot of reasons why you can slot into a track and reasons you can't slot into a track. So then when they were setting the tour of Mean Girls, I was in originally for that entire process. So I did, I mean, probably 6, 7 auditions for them. And it was
Jeez.
dance combinations and then you sing. Dance combinations and you sing. And it was always the same combos, which was really nice because then I felt like I can actually perform then and I'm not having to worry about what steps come next because after you go in the 4th time and you're doing the same sort of movement and you know the choreography and you know the audition combo, I feel like the team can then kind of get to see who you are and not just how you're embodying their choreography in an hour. Um, so I went in a bunch for that tour, and then I ended up not getting the tour. And then a few months went by, I set the second national tour for A Bronx Tale, and they needed a vacation swing. So they were looking for a vacation swing for Broadway, and they were looking for one for the tour. Originally, when I replaced the girl Brittany in the Prom, Susie Carroll, who was the vacation swing for the Prom, at the same time, because they didn't give her Brittany's spot, she moved over to vacation swing Mean Girls Broadway. So
Okay.
that slot then got filled before my audition ended up happening. So I was then just auditioning for the tour, being their swing. And there was one track on Broadway opening for a swing there as well, who technically is supposed to cover a principal. But ended up the girl that ended up getting the swing role didn't end up having to cover on Broadway. And then they asked me to swing the tour, which now in retrospect, at first I was like, oh, I want to stay in New York. I've done tour. Like, I really just want to stay here. Right. How cute is
Back
my
to the
costume too, right?
back to the redhead, back to the
Yeah. And
redhead.
I got a really cute wig. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a nice
Yeah.
wig.
And now I'm back to being a redhead. So I ended up going on the tour. You actually make more money on tour. So at this point, I was engaged and thinking of my wedding, planning a wedding. And I was like, okay, I want to do a show no matter what. I'm not one to really say no to anything. I kind of always will say yes, or at least try to say yes and try to, you know, do what I can to make it work. So when I was offered the tour, it was, I mean, automatically a yes. I was like, I don't even know why I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm going to go. And I knew a bunch of people on the tour, which was really great. One of my really good friends, Marcus, is a dance captain out there. Eshell, who was on Broadway with Mean Girls, was now the dance captain on the tour. A bunch of the Prom stage managers went to stage manage Mean Girls tour. So it was like, as again, like I'm joining a family. I already knew
It's
majority of them.
it's so crazy how it all trickles down.
Exactly. That's why you always got to be on your best behavior.
Yeah.
You always have
Always
to
love
be
your
nice.
friend.
You always have to just show up and do your job and work hard because it does get recognized. And like they saw how much work I put into doing the prom and how easy I was to be like, yeah, I'll do a split track, or yes, I'm game to do this. And when you're just someone who's pleasant to be around, it goes a long way in the industry. So like obviously you need the talent, but you also have to be, you know, a genuinely nice person off stage, especially on tour because now you're having to live with all these people, and you're in all these different cities. It's like a whole different beast. And so I flew out to Florida to do my first set of rehearsals there. And at this point, I would have done 5 or 6 tracks of the 8 that I have to know, but I only got to do one. But I'm happy I at least got to do one. And then I flew home for my future sister-in-law's wedding. And I was supposed to, so her wedding was on a Saturday. I was supposed to fly back to tour on Monday. And then every day they were like, no, just wait. Maybe we'll send you to the next city. Like, don't stress about it. We're still figuring things out. And now we're here a year later. And I never flew back out to tour.
Oh,
So I still have stuff on tour. Like, I
so
didn't think, I only thought I'd be leaving for the weekend. So I took like a backpack home.
you still have stuff in where were you guys? You said Florida?
We were in Florida.
So
Hmm.
you still have stuff in Florida.
So there's still, wherever our trucks are, yeah, I still have stuff on them. I still have
And
stuff in my trunk and I still have stuff in my makeup bin from the theater.
So, what are you what when are you gonna get that back? What are they doing with that? Have they said anything about that?
No.
Like, I
It's sort of
know.
like everything left where it was. I don't know where the trucks are now. Everything's safe. I mean, it's locked up, and like the things that I obviously haven't needed it over a year, or I've just gotten a new whatever I left out there.
Right.
Eventually, I'll get it for sure. But at this point, I feel like no one's going to be taking a vacation anytime soon. We've all been on vacation.
No, no.
So that's going to be interesting when things start back up to see kind of how things unfold. And a lot of people now within the industry are sort of on a different page in their life because they sort of were forced to. So who's going to be a part of the company, who's not, who's, I don't know, it's going to be very interesting.
When the tour does come back,
Mhm.
that's gonna be big because the Broadway production
Mhm.
unfortunately closed.
I know.
So I feel like everybody is gonna be running to go see the
Right?
tour.
'Cause that's going to be the only way you can really see it.
The show,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So in a way, when I was upset I didn't get the Broadway company, now I'm sort of like,
Thank God.
that I didn't get the Broadway company because I could still be with the tour. And honestly, no matter what, if you're in the Broadway company or the tour company, you're doing the same exact show.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You're still a part of the Broadway musical Mean
Mm,
Girls or the Broadway musical of A Bronx Tale, or you know what I mean? Like you're still doing everything that you would be doing on Broadway, and on tour you end up getting more money because you get per diem and things that you could just sort of negotiate where you can save your money and things. And you're getting to see the country. Like being on tour the few times I have seen 47 of the 50 states. I've seen all of Canada. Working on the cruise ship, I've seen all of the Caribbean. So it's like, I don't
You've
know.
been
I
everywhere.
love it. Yeah. And you're doing it on someone else's dime, in a sense. And you're still getting to do what you love to do. So
I
there's no complaints on my end.
Jerry Morse went on tour with, Waitress and Frozen, and he was like, this I mean, tour is awesome because it's the first time that anybody's seeing the role,
Yeah,
essentially, so
exactly.
you're their first experience, and
Exactly.
that
Which is
must.
really awesome because you get to bring the show to cities that, like, some people don't have the money to come to New York. You know what I mean? And so to be able to have that opportunity to sort of be there with these audiences that are experiencing it for the first time is incredible. It's really cool. And to be honest, Broadway theaters house a lot smaller amount of people. So
Yeah,
when you're on tour, you're playing to like thousands and thousands of people. Sometimes you're in a stadium, sometimes you're in theaters that hold up to 5,000 people, like the Fox in St. Louis. So it's like you're experiencing all of these iconic theaters throughout the country too. So besides just getting to do the Broadway show, you're now experiencing kind of what each city has to offer, and you're getting to kind of see what our nation's about, and it's really cool.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Now, so you didn't essentially go on tour with Mean Girls because how many states did you go to? Just
I
Florida.
was just in Florida. So I was with them. So they had like 3 cities within Florida. So they did Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, and one city before Tampa. I can't remember what city they were in before that. So I joined them in Tampa and I rehearsed. That's where I did all of my rehearsals. And then in Fort Lauderdale is where I did at the Broward Center is where I had my like opening week with them.
Right. Now, was your fiance with you or was
He came, so he's a teacher, so everything's remote.
uh-huh.
But when I joined Mean Girls, it was still the summer. So I joined them. Oh no, it wasn't summer. It was February, not the summer. But when I joined them, he was on his what would be their winter break. So it's like the break of President's Week
Right.
in school. So he came out with me, and we did like a mini vacation in Clearwater, Florida, before I joined the tour. And then he was with me for about a week and a half before he had to fly back home to go back to work. But then once he got back home, everything was remote. So he could have just stayed with me in Florida the whole time anyway.
Exactly.
But we've been together for 8 years.
It's a long
So
time.
he has visited me when I did Rock of Ages. He came on the ship 3 times, which was really cool because I got to spend a whole week with him in the Caribbean.
That's
And with
nice.
Rock of Ages, I was only doing 4 shows a week. So I had a lot of downtime. And with the particular contract I was on, I didn't have any extra duties to do, like a lot of others have to do on a cruise ship. So I truly got to act like a passenger majority of the time on the ship, which was awesome.
Now, when you were on the ship,
Hmm.
when you were just walking, was anybody like, "You're that girl"?
Yeah, sometimes. So we didn't have to wear our name tags. Um, unless you were sort of like pulled for an event or something, where if like
Okay.
people paid extra money to get a backstage tour or whatever the case may be, then you had to wear your name tag. But it was really cool. Like if we'd be like up at a restaurant or at the bar, like you'd get the looks and they'd be like, wait, that was a girl we saw last night in Rock of Ages or whatever. Or like I'm at the water slides and they're like, were you in the show last night? And I'm like, yeah, I was actually. So
How
it was fun.
how many like notices have you got from like doing theater? Broadway, Paper Mill.
Um,
That must feel pretty good. I mean,
it is cool to be recognized in a sense because I'm not one to like think that people care that much.
okay.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like,
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
especially being in the ensemble, like everyone always wants to talk to the leads. Everyone always wants to see, you know what I mean? So like when you come out of
Mhm.
the stage door, sometimes they're like, oh, like who are you? And you're like,
Yeah,
I mean, I just danced for 3 hours, but no big deal. You know what I mean?
exactly, and they don't even
Um,
realize. I mean,
but for prom and stuff, like the ensemble was huge because you're in every single number with all the leads. So
you have
and I
singing lines
feel
too.
just as big of a part.
You have singing lines too.
I did have some singing lines, which
So,
I never tell anyone when I have like solo lines or things because growing up, I was not one to want to sing by myself or act by myself. So I sort of like to leave those as little surprises. So when people see the show, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you sang!" or "Oh my gosh, you had lines."
and did you ever, like, see them in the audience when you sang that line? Like, were you ever waiting? Like,
Yeah,
"Oh, let me see
I would.
the."
I sort of knew where my family liked to sit in the theaters because of where they would come and see the Bronx Tale. So they knew the layout of the Longacre, so they knew like the good seats
Right.
to sit in, and they always would choose those seats. Like it became a point where the front of house knew the seat my mom would pick all the time, and like jokingly, they'd always have a ticket reserved and be like, "Oh, is your mom coming tonight? Yeah, we have her ticket pulled aside." So it's like, yeah, my family came all the time.
And even though you were a dancer first,
Mhm.
you're still a powerhouse singer.
Yeah, you
You
kinda have to be now. There is
you
no particular show that I can think of where you can solely be one thing anymore.
right.
Yeah.
Either
They
you were
will
singing
do like your podcast, you have to be a triple threat.
right, you were singing in the back, and then you would come. No, you like, you can everybody can hear the ensemble, but then you come, you have your line, you sing, "Love thy neighbor." That
Yep,
was your line. The
yep,
"Love thy neighbor." Yeah, that one.
yep.
And so, like, to hear that come out and you're loud, you're smiling, you're fronting, you're facing the house, so,
You
like,
got a few extra like, "Woo!"
yeah, and that must feel great knowing that you were
Yeah,
a dancer first,
it is,
worked on
it's
the
really cool
vocals,
because I
worked on the
worked
vocals.
really hard on it, so it's not something that has come super easy. And that's always been the one thing that I always get very, very nervous about because to be honest, like I don't read music.
Yeah,
But I have a
me
pretty
either,
good ear where like if you plunk it out, yeah. But if
me
you
either.
plunk it out, I can hear it and I could sing it and I can match the pitch and I could do all that stuff. But I used to get very intimidated when you had to like sight read things. Like the
I
first
can
show I did, I'll never forget. I would sit there with my pencil and they'd be like crescendo here and I'd be like okay, crescendo equals, and then I like write the definition. So in my first set of like sheet music for High School Musical, it's just definitions. I'm like, oh, this note means I have to hold it for 2 counts. Like I would make it into like dancer terms. I'm like, oh, I have to hold this note for 4 counts, or like I'm coming off on count 7, or like that's how like all of my scripts look because in my brain that's the only way that sort of makes sense to me. And I'm always the one
and
that's like, can you plunk that part out? Can you plunk the alto part? Can you plunk the whatever part? And as a swing, I have to sing every single part.
right, so you gotta learn it.
All on different, yeah. The kids were all on different, especially in Matilda. There was only 3 female adult ensemble. So it was soprano, alto, and then the middle part. And so if one girl was out, like I had to sing soprano for that show, or I had to sing alto for that show because if I didn't, then that part would be completely missing from the score, and then it would sound wonky.
And I know, at least for me, if that
Mhm,
ever happened to me, I
mhm.
can't, like other people, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I can't just grab a sheet music and look at it. Like, I have to
No,
listen to it and follow the notes because I can
same,
see
same.
where it is.
Totally. And with the kids, I also wasn't allowed to sing in my head voice. So I had to belt like a 9-year-old at the age of 25 or
Right.
24, however old I was on tour. So it was like that was also a huge learning experience because Like the mix, I wasn't allowed to mix. I had to belt it like the kids did because then they would see that an adult is playing a child. Which,
Exactly.
to be honest, when I'm on stage, you kind of know that like she's a really big kid in a way.
Yeah.
I'm barely 5 foot.
I
So
mean,
like height wise with some of them I could match. Yeah.
so
But
you do look
otherwise,
like an adult here.
yes. That
So,
actually is an adult. I was on for an adult that show.
oh yeah? Well,
Mhm.
they really all kind of have the same
Yeah, everyone
like
has
outfit.
different jumpers. Actually, no, my hair is my own. I don't have a wig on. So no, I was on for a kid. Yeah, I was on for Alice because my hair is in a side pony. So each track in Matilda, their hairstyle correlates with their track. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how I knew who I was. And all the kids, none of them wear wigs. So if I got thrown on, I had like a particular hairstyle for me that didn't match any of the other kids that if I had to jump into the show, I could throw my hair up in. Um, but for the adults, I had my wig was like a very, very light brown, sort of like it was like brown highlighted. But then when I went to the Toronto company to help out, I got the blonde wigs. So again, I was blonde.
Fun. Like, look, let's look here. We have regular hair,
Regular hair,
blonde hair,
blondie.
blonde,
Yep.
red,
I'm all over the place, but that's good. That means anyone can
red.
cast me in anything, right?
And in West Side Story, which this is you here,
Yep.
for Paper Mill,
Mhm.
what was your color for that wig?
Red.
I'm just curious. Red? Exactly
Mhm.
red.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
that's good. So during the pandemic,
Mhm.
you have been teaching master classes,
Yeah.
yoga training. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so before the pandemic shut down, I was with the Mean Girls tour. I was supposed to actually do Thoroughly Modern Millie at New York City Encores, which I was super excited about. I was going to be working with Camille Brown, who I've been dying to work with. She went to my high school, so I was just like really excited to work with her.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
cool.
I also was restaging the Bronx Tale tour. So I went from having 3 jobs, literally down to zero, and I was like, how am I going to figure out now what's going to be an income? Because everything I've done since I'm 17 has been within the theater community, working regionally, on tour, on Broadway. So it sort of was a way that I had to, like everyone else, you kind of have to like reinvent yourself. But for me, it was sort of like going back to things that I used to do that I really enjoyed that kept me within the art still. So my best friend has a studio on Staten Island. And so I reached out to her and I was like, if you have any classes, like I'd love to still be within a studio setting so that I feel, number one, if I'm teaching, I'm still keeping up with my craft and my technique. And I'm now imparting all the knowledge and things that I've learned on now, rising artists and stuff. And then I launched a website, BrittanyConigatti.com. Not that difficult.
It's in the it's down below, guys. It's down below. Go check it out. It
Nice.
is designed. It's such good design.
So that's Jack Sipple, who is the dance captain of the prom. He
Right.
was trying to figure out different ways to sort of help everyone out. And so he was like, do you mind if I make you a website? And I was like, Jack, I should have had a website years ago. But like, if you want to do it, like, go for it. And he sort of used mine as sort of like the test website. And isn't it incredible?
It's
Like, I
crazy.
love it. Yeah. So he did
My
a really
favorite
good job. So now
hand
that's
up.
sort of, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what he
I
does
like
sort of
that.
on the side. And he's been revamping a lot of like Broadway performers' websites. So we launched the website.
If
I
you
did,
scroll all the way down, it says,
yes,
uh, the
Jacksonville. Yeah,
Jack, yeah, and
yeah,
I didn't even know until I saw that.
right.
So,
Yeah,
he's a jack of all trades,
he has
apparently.
literally he has so many things that he's good at. It's crazy.
I'm gonna have to
Um,
contact him. I need a
yeah,
website. Podcast needs a website.
totally. Yeah, do it.
But yeah, it's really cool. So,
Yeah,
all of her links are gonna be down below.
nice.
Um, so yeah, continue talking about yoga. So, how did you
So
get into
then,
yoga out of all things?
so I have done yoga for the past 8 years. To be honest, my fiance got me into yoga. I used to not like it and be like, it's so boring, blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, I started doing it pretty much every day during a Bronx Tale. And it kept my body in such good shape because of the way you're moving on a stage all the time. Sometimes it's raked, sometimes you're in rehearsal all day, you're standing. It was a way to sort of like decompress everything and just stay super healthy. And I sort of fell in love with this particular style that I do, which is called Baptiste yoga, and it's labeled as a power yoga. Um, but it has helped me like physically, mentally. And so their teacher trainings last about like 3 months, particularly within my studio, because they only try and do it on the weekends since usually people are working. So it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And normally I'm in shows, so I can't do it. And I've been wanting
Okay.
to sort of dive into teaching it just because I know how much it's helped me. And I incorporate it a lot in my classes. And I just know that like mind body connection is huge. And the more I learn about it, the more I see how helpful it is. And I think people need to start incorporating that more into their life. And so they were offering a teacher training starting in January. And at this point, when things shut down, I was like, we're totally going to be open by January. Like, I shouldn't sign up. It's a lot of money to just sort of like put into something and not really be able to commit to or
Right.
do. Like
Yeah.
200 hours of studying and training in person, or some of it's on Zoom, some of it's in person with like masks and
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
Um, but you're putting in so much work outside as well. Like I'm always studying, I'm always have to do classes. So it's definitely a big commitment that I just can't do when I'm in a show. And so I just felt it was the only opportunity I would have had to really do this ideally. And I was like, you know what? I need to just do something for me. I really enjoy it. And I love the owner of the studio that I go to. And she was a dancer herself. So she sort of understands the background of dance. And a lot of this yoga is related, I feel, to dance and things that I've learned. And so now I finish in 2 weekends. I'm really excited. I get my official certification and then I can teach.
Well,
Incorporate that
congratulations.
now. Yeah, thanks. And then I've just been doing like privates with different, kids and students in dance or self tapes or things that they feel they need to work on for when things start to open up again. In New
Now,
York City, all of the high schools that you usually would go and audition for, like I did with LaGuardia, or my sister
mhm.
went to PPAS, which is the Professional Performing Arts School, who's affiliated with Alvin Ailey and the Rosie O'Donnell Theater School. All of those auditions now are virtual. So they sent combinations that you had to learn and record. And so I've been working with a bunch of like eighth graders who are trying to get all that material together to submit to now these high schools that they have to do because there's no in-person auditions.
All while being a nanny
Yeah.
and doing your yoga.
I literally was saying it's all things that I used to do when I was, 13, 14, 15. And like, I loved it. Like, I love teaching dance. I love being a part of watching someone like discover themselves and all their different talents and things. Like, I love being that person. And it's so funny that I'm like, all the jobs that I had when I was younger, I'm now doing now. So theater keeps you humble. You don't
Let's
forget
not
where you came from
forget.
because, to be honest, you probably will be back there eventually.
Right.
And it's
And let's not
okay.
forget, while doing all this, you were on TV.
I was. I was a dead girl, Maria
Yes.
Ferraro,
Icy.
on
Oh,
Law& and
icy.
Order, which was so fun and so out of nowhere. I shot as if I was gonna be the first episode, so I was the guinea pig of sort of like them starting to open back up again. So it was very, very COVID safety crazy.
Mhm.
I was tested every single day,
Mm.
whether I was on set or not on set.
Now,
Um,
that test, was it all the way up the nose, or was it just, like, a little
so
bit like they do
So it
now?
was they alternated. So like 4 days out of the week you got the one up your nose really high,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
3 days you got the one where you did the nasal swab like the ones you get now that are more like the rapid tests.
Yeah, like, right here.
Mhm.
It doesn't go
Yeah.
up all the way, yeah.
Yep. So those ones weren't too bad, but when you had to get the ones up the nose,
Yeah.
oof. So I had to
Well,
do that for like 2 weeks straight every day.
so you played the same character, right?
Mhm.
So how many times did they have to use you and, like,
So
put
we
you
ended up over the 2 week span, I was only there for 3 days. So, what they try and do to eliminate the amount of people in and out of the studio is they try and schedule all of your things within like one big chunk. So, I was there, say, at like 8 a.m., but I wouldn't leave until like 8 p.m. And they would try and get in as much as they possibly could in that one day, just to keep your sort of pods smaller.
How was the audition for that? What did you have to do?
So, funny
If
enough, it was a non speaking role.
Yeah.
But I had to do a self-tape of 3 sides, so I had 3 scenes to read, which is nuts,
Yeah, for
um,
a non-speaking role.
for a non-speaking role, right, and I was a foreign exchange student from Milan, so I was like, do I have to have an Italian accent in this self-tape? Like, I don't really know like which route to go down. And my agent was like, just talk as you. Like it's really just to see, I guess, mannerisms and
Mhm.
how you kind of are as a person.
So
So it was cool. So they always have like a backup shoot day, as if so every episode has to be a certain amount of time.
mhm.
And so all the scenes that I read were about sort of how I got murdered and like
So
the
that's
lead
pretty
up to being
ironic.
murdered. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I had to basically act those scenes out for the self tape. And those are the scenes that I wouldn't have been speaking in, but we would have had to like act out had there not been enough time within the original shot of the episode. So I
Right.
didn't end up shooting me actually being murdered, which I was kind of looking forward to because it was a pretty crazy story. If you watched it or if you didn't watch it, I had a pretty crazy storyline.
Right.
But yeah, it was really cool. The makeup, it's so interesting seeing what they do to get you to look dead.
It was so weird
And
because,
it's
like,
weird seeing yourself that way. Like when they send me the pictures being like, this is what you're gonna look like on screen. Cause it's different when you're looking in a mirror. Like it looks really fake. But then when they sent me the test shot of what they like the screen grab that they had, I
you
was
look
like,
frozen. Like, you actually look
I
frozen.
know. So
Your
my
nose
lips
is
were like
red.
glued together with all these crystals on them. They were like sprinkling crystals on my eyes. I could not open my eyes for majority of that shoot day. So I was literally just like laying in the freezer. And an actual freezer. I was in an actual freezer.
Okay. Alright. Had some technical difficulties. Here we are.
That's what
We're
happened.
now in my living room. Had to bring the mic with me. I guess the studio didn't pick up good Wi-Fi. Sorry about that.
It's all
But,
good.
where were we? We were on yoga
Yeah, I
and
just finished talking about jumping into this yoga training and it's sort of being something that I decided to do for me during all this quarantine stuff. And
okay.
I finish in 2 weekends. So I'm really excited. So
Definitely
that's
for
now
you.
an option on my website if anyone wants to do some yoga classes or yoga privates on Zoom or in like a small group. It'd be really cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, everything will be linked down below in the description. Just wanted to thank Brittany so much for coming on the
Of
podcast
course.
and chatting. Like I said, everything will be in the link in the description below. So
Check me out.
definitely check her out. Follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, thanks
This is
so much
really
for
fun.
having me
And
on.
to be honest, this is really cool that you started this entire podcast at your age.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome and really commendable.
I
So I'm
appreciate
very
that so
happy to
much.
be one of the people that you selected to come on here.
Of
So
course.
special.
Thank you so much. But yeah, I look forward to you know, the journey that I have with this podcast and see what it did. I put a lot of work into it.
Yeah,
So
I can tell. That's great.
thank you, thank you. I'm
Awesome.
excited. So you can follow her on Instagram at Brit. It's different. It's not your name.
It's Brit because Brittany, someone had Brittany, so it's
Oh,
Brit
really?
Conigatti.
Well, there you go. Follow her on Instagram there, and you can follow us on Instagram at Triple Threats Podcast. Make sure you listen on Spotify and anywhere you listen to your podcast. Once
Yes.
again, a big thank you to Brittany. Tune in next week for a brand new episode. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.